Hello, welcome back to Slightly Better. I'm Kelly, and today we're talking about something that I think every single parent, every single mom, every single adult human person has related to at some point, and that is feeling overwhelmed. The feeling of overwhelm. We say it all the time, we hear it all the time, we talk about it all the time. And today we're going to dive a little deeper and try to figure out if we are actually overwhelmed or if we are over-influenced. That's what I'm here for. I ask the tough questions, I get you thinking, and hopefully together we can come to some sort of solution or something that feels like a solution, because this is a problem that a lot of us face, especially if you're parents. I think if you were to list out the feelings that parents or moms, I'm a mom, so that's who I can speak for, I think. The feelings that we generally feel on a regular basis, overwhelmed is going to be one of the top, 5, right? And I think in this current time in 2025, when we're all more connected than ever, yet more disconnected than ever, we're all seeing each other's lives in a really fucking unnatural way, it's more easy than ever to feel overwhelmed because we are inundated with input at all times. So we're going to kind of dive into that today, and what it might look like if you are overwhelmed, or what it might look like if you are over-influenced, and the effect that can have on your state, your well-being, your health, the way you see your partnerships, your relationships, your life, and what we can start to do about it to get a little control back and feel better, have more fun, and have a better time in our day-to-day. So I want to acknowledge how overwhelming it actually can be to be a mom or a parent of any kind. We have a lot going on these days, whether it's your kids' schedules, their up and down emotions, your job, your own projects, your passions, your keeping up with exercise, your own mental health, just handling all of it. It definitely can be overwhelming. I think it's a lot to have to deal with for anyone, and especially if you're somebody who wants to be intentional and very purposeful about the way you do things. Your mind might feel like it's just going and going and going at all times. You have a million tabs open. I know that's how I feel a lot of the time as somebody who's constantly thinking of stuff, planning stuff. I'm woken up in the night with thoughts and ideas, and just, how it is when you're woken up in the middle of the night with all the things you have to do. And now you're stressed because you're not getting enough sleep. I know how it feels, but I do now want to take an opportunity to challenge you a little bit. Let's not pretend that we're not all chronically online. I am chronically online. The only person I know who's not chronically online is my husband, Joe. He's just not. But for most of us, any free moment we get, we're waiting for our coffee to brew or our food to heat up, we're scrolling, right? We're scrolling on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're watching YouTube videos, we're having a conversation with our best friend, ChatGPT. We're all doing it. And while we're doing that, we're observing the way other people live, other people's habits, other people's meals, how they decorate their homes, how they parent their kids. And it might seem harmless, and it might just seem like, aimless scrolling and passively observing, but when you create a habit out of passively observing, it's really not so passive anymore, and it kind of it definitely can start to infiltrate the way you think and the way you see your own life. So that's where over-influence comes in. So I would define over-influence as constantly absorbing other people's ideas, identities, and lives. Now, what can happen when we're over-influenced and we're constantly observing and absorbing all of this is that we can lose touch with our own lives, our own ideas, and our own identities. And it's probably not something you're consciously thinking of or would even consciously realize unless you zoomed out and took several steps back to kind of assess the effect that all the inputs in your life have on your output and just on your mental state and the way you're thinking and behaving. So when we're over-influenced and we're constantly absorbing all of this messaging and these ideas that we didn't seek out and we didn't actively create ourselves, is that it becomes this quiet chaos that slowly, it starts to feel like indecision, right? It feels like guilt. And it can feel like a huge loss of clarity, like internal clarity. And essentially our autonomy is compromised at this point. If you're thinking like, yes, this is me, please don't feel bad, because like I said, these apps and these things are set up in a way to hold our attention, right? It's business. They want us on these apps. They want us scrolling constantly. They want us comparing and observing. They don't really care how it affects the way we think or the way we operate, the way we treat other people, the way we treat ourselves, the way we parent our children. The fucking creator of all these apps, they don't give a shit. They want you on the apps. They want you spending money. They want you spending time. And it's up to us to take responsibility for the amount of time and energy we spend scrolling, comparing, absorbing, right? So if you're not sure what being over influenced might feel like, I'm going to give you just a few quick examples. So if you really sit down and think about it, and you're not exactly sure what you truly think, what you truly believe, what you personally truly want, without hearing any outside noise or without thinking about Ballerina Farm or whoever else, I don't even know, without thinking about what they would do, if you can't sit there and write down exactly what you believe and what you know to be true, you might be under too much influence. If you're someone who needs a lot of external validation or approval from other people to feel okay or to feel that your decisions are okay, and especially I think if you know you weren't always this way, you might be over influenced. And I think that's a big one, right? Like we have to think about how we always used to be, I think, because a lot of people that I've spoken to on this topic will say like they find themselves changing the way they're doing things and changing the way they're thinking and responding to things, but it's not how they used to be. They were never like this. And like I said, it's okay. Like you can't really fully blame yourself because it's so easy to let this happen. It's so easy to let your mind get infiltrated. And that again is the whole point. I'm not trying to sound like a crazy person, but I think we can all agree that like social media, it's not inherently a healthy thing at this point in time. Right? It can be. Many people have found a way to use it, you know, with boundaries in place and in a more healthy way. But a lot of us, like, before we know it, we'll watch one video before we know it. We're like sitting there, honestly, thinking about how to redo our entire life. Right? And that's because we've now observed somebody who dresses cuter or whose house looks nicer or whose kids seem calmer. Another way you'll be able to tell if you're over influenced, and this is a huge one right now, especially with our political landscape, this RFK shit, you know, the wellness to alt-right pipeline. I'm not going to comment on it, but it's obviously there, right? So if you're somebody who's easily swayed by trends or by people who claim to be authorities online, if you're somebody who has changed like your whole diet or your whole approach to how you're medically treating your children or something like that, if you've received information from an influencer or from just somebody who claims to know and you've actually made changes because of that, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're over influenced. You are heavily over influenced. But don't feel bad because you can reel it in. You certainly can reel it in. I'm going to list off some more examples of over influence, and I want you to really think about it, maybe even write down a few that might get you thinking or that you might be able to relate to, that you're like, shit, I'm doing that. Let me think about that. So if I'm looking up here, it's because I'm looking at my computer because there's no way I can memorize all this. So if you find yourself establishing or changing how you operate or your values as a person based on whoever is the loudest, right? Whoever has the most followers, whoever's influence seems the greatest, whoever you keep seeing online over and over and over again, whoever you keep seeing their posts shared, whoever has the loudest voice in the room, if you're changing your values or establishing values based on those people, it's something to think about. If you're constantly overspending or buying things because you're being influenced to online, I mean, I think this is a pretty obvious one. We can say like, you're over influenced. You know what I mean? Or if you're changing your life plans to meet some sort of expectation because you're seeing this play out a lot with other people. And now for you, that feels like the societal expectation and you're going to alter the plans that you've made in your life for that. It's something to think about. This is a big one that I see a lot. I have almost fallen into this myself and I know other people who have. And I really want you to listen up here because this one doesn't just affect you. So if you find yourself observing relationships online, families, couples, mom and dad relationships, we're seeing a lot of couple content online these days, a lot of families, a lot of showing all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if you're finding yourself putting expectations on your husband, your wife, your partner, your friends, your family, anybody, but I'm going to specifically talk about like partnered relationships. If you're putting expectations on them that you haven't previously discussed with them, you haven't communicated, now to you, they're not living up to or meeting those expectations. And now you're feeling some kind of way. You're resentful. You're pissed. You need to log off. You need to go touch some grass. And I'm saying that as somebody who's maybe like 2 or 3 steps ahead of you. I am not somebody who's not chronically online. I would love to be online less. I'm working on it. I'm not saying this as somebody who's judgmental. I'm saying this as somebody who's walking alongside you, trying to get better with this shit, is that you need to stop comparing your relationship to the ones you see. One, because it's probably not true, right? Two, because you're going to cause a lot of stress within your own home, within your own life that doesn't need to be there. So if you're not communicating these expectations to your partner, if you haven't agreed on it, you have no right to be pissed. And I'm just going to say that. It's like me thinking, like, Joe took my daughter to his parents today, right? It's like me thinking he's going to stop off and pick up dinner on the way home, even though I have never made it clear that that's what I expected or wanted him to do. And now I'm angry because he didn't bring home dinner. I'm wrong for that. I would be very wrong for that. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to say you're right or you're wrong. I'm trying to say that if you're finding yourself looking at your man thinking like, well, why doesn't he do this? Or your wife, like, why doesn't she do that? And you're not speaking directly to them and asking them that, but you have somebody's like reel or TikTok playing in your head, like, well, they do that. It's a touch grass moment. But all jokes aside, it is an opportunity to say, what I need to do is let go of that. And I need to communicate with this person about how I'm feeling. If you're a parent and you're like making meals and you're playing and you're organizing activities and you're trying to do your thing, but you have voices in your head saying you're not doing it good enough, you're not gentle enough, you're not this enough, you're not connecting enough, blah, 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 blah. If that's all you can hear and you're not guided by your own like parental intuition or your own feelings about what you want to do, you need to be able to get those voices out of your head because you are over influenced. I'll give you one more. If your mornings suck, if you're super tired and you go from somebody who can't wake up with your alarm to thinking you're going to buy a cold plunge and start doing contrast therapy every morning or running 5 miles, like reel it in, babe. That's not what you need. Maybe you need a new morning routine, but let's not major in the minors. You know what I mean? Let's not go to extremes based on what we see other people doing. Let's think of like one thing we can do to improve the morning. Maybe it's waking up a half an hour early. Maybe it's setting your coffee pot up so all you have to do is press a button. You know, it's your life. I don't know, but you can't expect yourself to wake up and start implementing new routines and new habits without even having a real reason why, other than my current one isn't working. I think being over-influenced and overwhelmed can interlap. I'm sorry, what did I just say? I think being overwhelmed and over-influenced can overlap. Yeah, English. Okay. You can become overwhelmed mentally if you're constantly adjusting yourself to fit into some sort of mold of what you think your life should look like. Conversely, if you're overwhelmed and therefore you have like decision fatigue, you are much more susceptible to being over-influenced with solutions, right? This is a slippery slope. And it's a slippery slope because as somebody who loves inspiration, like I love seeing what people like smarter than me, more successful than me, you know, people who are inspiring to me, I love seeing what they do. I love learning from other people. It's like one of the greatest joys of life to me, I think, is connecting with and learning from other people. But there's a line that gets crossed where that inspiration becomes comparison. And what should feel like gentle guidance starts to make you feel guilty. So if you're listening to a podcast, a wellness podcast, right? And they're mentioning chlorophyll, mouth tape, sauna, cold plunge, all this shit, right? And you're like, I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do all of this. Or you're listening to some random parent who has one child, like who's like a year old, and she's giving all the advice, right? All the advice of what to do, how to manage their feelings, how to feed them. Like, honey, no, you're at this 1 year. You can't be given advice, you know? And those, if you're really listening to a lot of these voices, you are going to feel like shit. Like, there's just no way. Like, you're definitely going to feel a little shitty if you're inundated with these voices and it's all you can hear in your head while you're trying to do your thing. So now if this is you, suddenly your life feels like it's missing something or it's incomplete or something's off, something's not right. And that's probably 100% false. Totally and honestly false. Like, totally false. Now, when I first became a mom, I started following like all the accounts, right? Big Little Feelings was one. And while I will say a lot of the content that they posted was really helpful and it really got me thinking about how to approach certain situations, I quickly learned that I couldn't take every single thing that they said because it just didn't apply to me. It didn't apply to my personality. It didn't apply to the things I value in, you know, in my home, in my family, in my motherhood. It didn't apply. So I could take what was right for me and I could leave the rest. And I think that's like a really hard distinction to make sometimes, is that we hear so much advice all the time, right? Everyone's a fucking expert on everything, right? So it's hard to discern like what is for me and what is not. And, we can talk another time about how to actually figure that out if you're somebody who's confused, or maybe you just never really put that much thought into it. But yeah, I was following all the accounts, and my daughter did not sleep like as a baby. Like, if you know me, you already know she didn't sleep until she was 3. Literally not once did she ever sleep through the night. I feel like we're still catching up on sleep, but I would buy courses or listen to all these experts saying, what to do when your kid won't sleep, how to lay them down, how to set the mood, like what to do, the lavender, everything. When I tell you we tried every single thing, and I think all she needed was more space, right? So once we ended up getting her like a big bed, like a real person bed, that's when she finally slept. And so here's just a side note. If your kid's not sleeping well, get rid of the fucking crib and just put a mattress on the floor. I'm not qualified to say that. I don't know if it will work, but it worked for us. Anyway, I was hearing their voices, right, in my head, the parenting experts I was listening to, whether it was for managing and teaching emotional regulation or how to feed them properly or sleep issues or anything, because as a first-time mom, you're just looking for answers. Like, you have no idea what you're doing. You're worried. You're scared. You want to do it right. You're outsourcing your intuition. That's what I realized. When I followed what I knew and what I felt in my gut, which has never failed me, my gut has never steered me wrong, ever, not once. I haven't followed it and I've steered myself wrong, but when I follow my gut, it's always a good choice, even if it feels like the harder choice. When I stopped outsourcing my parental intuition and the things that I felt in my gut and knew in my heart to be true, a lot of things got better, or a lot of things felt easier. There's less resistance, and I'm not, discrediting any of these parenting experts, but we have to remember that what works for one person doesn't always work for the next person. So if you're somebody who is overwhelmed because you're hearing the voices of everyone else in your head, if you're trying your best to do things right or make things perfect, and when you really sit and think about it, you have no idea if what you're feeling, what you're doing, your approach actually comes from a deep sense of knowing or intuition within you, or at least a chance you want to take, or if it's people who say they know better making their way into your brain. What you need to do is just get rid of it all. I'm not saying delete your apps. I'm saying just get some space and really try and do this, okay? Because the more you wait, the longer you wait to do this, the more it's going to compound and the worse it's going to get. So first thing you need to do is really get some silence, get some space, and ask yourself, am I overwhelmed by my actual life, my life? What's happening right now in my home, in my head, within my family, within my relationships? Is that overwhelming to me? Or am I finding myself a little too influenced by the falsified versions of what my life could look like by other people online or even in real life? When you make decisions, if you struggle with your decisions, ask yourself, is this decision coming from my values, or is it coming from fear? Is it coming from fear of stepping away from things that I've always done? Is it fear of stepping into something unknown or uncharted territory of some kind? Ask yourself that. Now, if you are making decisions out of fear, it's not easy to just suddenly make a new one, but at least then you can come up with a plan of how to approach making new decisions. Okay? So ask yourself, am I making decisions based on my values or fear? And the longer you go making decisions based on fear and not your own values, your own intuition, the more disconnected you're going to feel, the more of a tornado is going to brew inside you, and the more overwhelmed you're going to constantly feel. The biggest question you can ask is, what actually matters to me right now, right? What really, really matters to me right now? And I'll give you an example. I don't clean my house on the weekends. Like, I will tidy up, obviously, like do dishes, clean up the kitchen at night, vacuum, whatever needs to be done. But I'm not scrubbing. I'm probably not even putting the laundry away. Like, by Monday morning, I have at least 2 to 3 baskets of laundry that need to be put away. Okay. And I know that really freaks some people out. And I know none of you, some people really couldn't live that way. But if it's a beautiful weekend and I'm torn between staying in the house to clean or like taking my daughter on a hike or to play with her friends somewhere, I think what really matters, this is a pretty obvious example, and while we might not all make this decision, I think a lot of us can see why I would make the decision to just go outside and play and have a good time and take my daughter out rather than sitting in the house folding laundry on a gorgeous day. But it's things like that. What actually matters to me right now and what matters in the long run. And then you make decisions based on that. So if you struggle with this, as many people do, get some silence, okay? You need to get back in touch with the agency that you actually do have over your life. You don't need more experts. You need more self-trust. And you're not going to build self-trust by outsourcing your decisions, your intuition, and your values and your approach to other people, to randos online, okay? You're not going to build more self-trust by doing that. That's noise. When you allow all this noise in your head, you're muting the clarity that you're looking for. When you're looking for clarity, it's usually hidden under all that noise. You're not going to find personal alignment by scrolling on Instagram for more solutions. You're not. You're going to find something that somebody claimed worked for them, and maybe it didn't. You're not going to find the solutions that align with your values, what matters to you, the lifestyle you want, your approach. You're not going to find that by scrolling for it on someone else's timeline of their life. So the less noise you allow in, the quieter you can get your mind, the stronger your inner voice is going to become, and therefore the stronger your self-trust is going to become. And then you're going to be able to start making choices that actually feel right to you. This is not about doing what's perfect. This is about doing what feels right to you. This is about allowing yourself to shut everything out that feels like it's screaming in your face at all times, to focus on what really matters. And once you start doing that online, you can really start doing that in real life too. Our current society is set up in a very almost unnatural way. A lot of times I'm scrolling on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and I'm seeing something and I feel like I shouldn't be seeing this. I feel like I'm walking in on something I shouldn't be seeing. Okay. And maybe to start thinking about it like that, we can't keep absorbing these types of videos, these types of messages, these types of scenarios and not expect it to get in our heads. You might be a little pissed at your husband for not doing one thing, and you might see that video and then your anger goes from a level 2 to a level 10. You know what I mean? You're going to take that on. So it's really important to get this under control before you allow it to kind of take over in a bigger way. Nobody can predict the future. We live in a time where I think getting offline as much as possible is really important. Believe me, I recognize the irony of me saying that on a podcast right now. But I do think it's important to audit and really filter your inputs, okay? So I'm not telling you to stay offline forever, but maybe unsubscribe or unfollow from anything that doesn't align with you, messaging that doesn't feel good to you, things that are making you escalate problems in your head that maybe aren't really there or aren't as bad as you think. So before you go and say, I'm so overwhelmed, strip it down. Strip it down to what really matters. Get rid of the noise, get rid of the clutter, the mental clutter, maybe the physical clutter. Get quiet, get back in touch with yourself, your intuition, the agency you have over your life. Control what you can control. Keep listening to Slightly Better, because what we're all about is not perfection, but it's doing little things that move the needle for us in better ways every day. And it's about making choices for your life that actually fit you and that feel really good. Okay, so if this episode hit you in any way, I would really love it if you would leave a review, share it with a friend, leave me a comment. I want some feedback. I want this to be an interactive thing. I want community. So leave me comments, send me messages, share with friends. Tell me if I'm out of line. I can take it. All right. I hope you can take something from this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.